Imagine thinking you know someone because the whole world seems to know them. Imagine believing their story because it's been repeated so many times that questioning it feels almost forbidden. But what if everything you thought was true about one woman, her family, her children, her carefully constructed rise, wasn't just exaggerated, but something else entirely? What if the image wasn't cracked, but manufactured? But before we continue, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell for updates. That's where our story begins. Not with a scandal splashed across headlines. Not with a leaked photo, but with a whisper. A whisper so small that most people ignored it. A whisper that should have been impossible. A whisper that said, Marina Kingsley could never have had children. At first, it sounded ridiculous. Marina wasn't just admired, she was adored. The elegant humanitarian who married into one of the wealthiest and most traditional families in the country. The activist mother. The public symbol of resilience, grace, and impossible perfection. So who would dare question it? Who would even try? But here's the real question you should be asking. Why did the people closest to her stay silent for so long? And why? After 7 years of polished public appearances, picture-perfect family portraits, and interviews describing motherhood as her greatest calling, is the truth surfacing now? Because someone finally stopped protecting her. And that someone wasn't a tabloid. It wasn't a blogger. It was her ex-husband, Travis Ellington, a name Marina has avoided like a stain that refuses to come out. A man who disappeared from her life the moment she married into power, yet somehow never fully let go of what he knew. For years, Travis stayed quiet. Until now. But before you think this is just another bitter ex-revenge story, ask yourself something. Why would a man who rebuilt his life, remarried, and intentionally stayed out of the spotlight suddenly return with proof, not opinions, that the children Marina claims as her own may not be hers? Why risk everything? His privacy, his career, his credibility, unless he believed he had no other choice. And here's where the timing gets interesting. Because this didn't happen randomly. It happened right after Marina announced something that shocked the world. Her plan to write a memoir. Not a philanthropic book. Not a cookbook. A memoir that promised to tell the story no one has ever heard. But someone had heard it. Someone knew it word for word, because he lived it before the world ever cared who Marina Kingsley was. And that someone wasn't about to let her rewrite history. So here's the question that will keep you watching. What is Marina so desperate to hide? To understand that, we need to go back, not to the glamorous life everyone sees now, but to the version of Marina no one recognizes anymore. The Marina who wasn't famous. The Marina who wasn't royal adjacent. The Marina who wasn't untouchable. Back when she was just Marina Hale, a struggling actress living in a tiny apartment above a laundromat. A woman who wasn't yet a symbol, only a dreamer. Nothing about her life then suggested she would one day become a global household name. Nothing, except one thing. Her ability to reinvent herself. Not gradually, not through hard work alone, but instantly, completely, almost surgically. And that talent didn't go unnoticed. Because just 3 months after meeting a certain influential billionaire family at a charity event, Marina went from anonymous to legendary. The engagement was fast. The wedding was faster. And the first pregnancy announcement? Faster still. Too fast. So fast that people close to her, the ones she assumed would remain silent forever, started counting months on their fingers. But here's the detail no one knew back then. Just 2 years earlier, when she was still married to Travis Ellington, Marina underwent a major medical procedure. A procedure that changed everything. A procedure that made pregnancy impossible. For the first time, the story doesn't begin with a rumor. It begins with a hospital record. So why didn't anyone talk about it? Why didn't Travis expose her earlier? Why didn't the hospital leak? Why didn't the truth surface at the exact moment the world should have been paying attention? Because Marina didn't just reinvent herself. She erased the version of her that existed before. She changed her name, her location, her circle, her narrative, and most dangerously, she changed her truth. But reinvention has limits, and Marina just reached hers. Because Travis Ellington didn't come forward alone. He brought evidence, not screenshots, not anonymous messages, documents, dates, witness confirmations, records no one ever expected to see daylight, especially Marina. So this is where you need to pay attention, because here's the twist most people miss. This story isn't really about whether Marina has children. It's about how far someone will go to protect a lie once the world has already believed it. Ask yourself this. If you built your entire identity around something that wasn't true, would you admit it? Would you correct the record? Or would you defend it until the last possible moment, even when the walls start closing in? And most importantly, what happens to a person when the image they created becomes more real than who they actually are? Marina didn't just build a life. She built a fortress. The perfect husband, the perfect family, the perfect narrative. But every fortress has one flaw. It's only as strong as the secrets holding it together. And Marina's secrets are starting to leak. Not because she slipped, not because someone blackmailed her, but because, after years of silence, the truth finally found someone who refused to stay quiet. So here's where our story is heading, and why you're going to want to watch every second. We are about to follow the trail from the first hidden medical procedure, to the disappearance of Marina's original medical file, to the night Travis received a phone call that changed everything, and to the moment Marina realized the lie she thought she buried was never buried at all. But before we get there, you need to understand one more thing. Marina didn't make this decision alone. Someone helped her. Someone powerful. Someone who had just as much to gain from the illusion as she did. And when you find out who that person is, you might never look at Marina's rise or her marriage the same way again. Because the shocking part of this story isn't that Marina hid the truth. It's how many people helped her do it, and how much they all stand to lose if the truth comes out now. Which brings us to the question that will take us into Chapter 1. If the lie began before Marina became famous, what else from her old life is waiting to surface? Most stories about explosive secrets begin with a dramatic confrontation, a slammed door, a screaming match, a confession made in anger. This one didn't. It began with an ordinary night. A night so ordinary that Travis Ellington still can't explain how he sensed something was wrong before anything actually happened. He was sitting alone in his apartment, the kind of place people only move into when they're rebuilding. Not too big, not too small, just enough space to feel like a temporary life. The clock on the wall ticked louder than usual. The city traffic below sounded strangely distant. And for reasons he still doesn't understand, he kept checking his phone even though nobody ever called that late. Then the phone rang. Not loudly, not urgently, just a single vibration, like the universe tapping him on the shoulder. He almost didn't answer. And if he hadn't, everything that followed would have stayed buried forever. The name on the screen wasn't one he expected to see again. Dr. Rowan Mercer. Not a friend. Not an enemy. Just a name attached to a chapter of his life he thought he'd closed. Travis stared at the phone long enough for the call to almost end. Then he answered. Not because he wanted to, but because something inside him whispered that ignoring it would be a mistake. Travis. The voice on the line was quiet, cautious, almost unfamiliar. I wasn't sure this number would still work. Travis didn't say anything at first. He didn't need to. The silence was an answer all by itself. Dr. Mercer cleared his throat. There's something I need to tell you. Travis leaned back, eyes narrowing. It's been 7 years, doctor. What could you possibly need to tell me now? Another pause. A longer one. Then 7 words that turned the next year of Travis's life into a minefield. It's about Marina. And it can't wait. Most people, in that moment, would have hung up, or demanded details, or told Mercer he was calling the wrong person. But Travis did none of those things. Because the doctor wasn't just a doctor. He was the surgeon who performed Marina's procedure. The one they agreed never to talk about again. The one that changed everything. Travis stood up slowly, as if the room tilted beneath him. This better not be what I think it is. I wish it weren't, Mercer replied. But her medical file, the original one, it's missing. For a moment, Travis didn't breathe. Not because he was shocked, but because the shock made too much sense. Nothing about Marina's new life ever matched the woman he once knew. Not her public image. Not her speeches about motherhood. Not the carefully curated persona that seemed manufactured, polished, almost rehearsed. But this crossed a line even Marina wouldn't dare step over. Unless someone helped her. Travis finally found his voice. Files don't just go missing. This one did, Mercer said. And not because of a clerical error. Travis sat down slowly, gripping the edge of the table. Tell me exactly what you're saying. Mercer exhaled. The sound of a man who'd been carrying guilt too heavy for too long. Someone requested access to Marina's records. Someone with clearance. Someone who shouldn't have known the file existed. And the file? Gone, Mercer whispered. The digital copy. The hard copy. Everything. Travis closed his eyes. 7 years of silence suddenly felt like a mistake. He almost laughed, but it wasn't amusement. It was disbelief. Why are you telling me this now? Because, Mercer said, I think Marina is planning to release her own version of what happened. And if she does, you'll be the villain. There it was. Not the truth. Not justice. But fear. Fear of being rewritten. Fear of being erased. A familiar feeling, because Marina had done it before. Travis swallowed hard. So what do you expect me to do? Start a press tour? No, Mercer said quickly. I'm telling you because someone else will come looking for you. And when they do, you'll want to know the truth before they tell you their version of it. The line went quiet. The city hummed outside. And for the first time since Marina vanished from his world, Travis realized something. She hadn't disappeared. She'd been covered. Protected. Shielded. Hidden. Not by accident, but by design. Is that all? Travis asked finally. No, Mercer replied. There's one more thing. I kept a copy. Travis froze. What kind of copy? A private one. Not official. Not logged. Travis's voice dropped. Why would you do that? Mercer hesitated. Because something about the situation never felt right. The secrecy. The urgency. The pressure to fast-track the paperwork. Travis felt his pulse in his throat. You think someone planned this? I don't know what to think, Mercer said. I just know I'm not supposed to have what I have. And if anyone finds out, it won't just be Marina who goes down. Travis held the phone tighter. Why tell me instead of the authorities? Because authorities won't protect me, Mercer said quietly. But someone who lost everything because of the same lie might. The call ended before Travis could respond. No goodbye, no instructions, just silence. A silence that didn't feel empty, it felt loaded. Travis stayed frozen, staring at nothing, the phone still in his hand. He hadn't heard Marina's name spoken aloud in years. Not since the divorce. Not since she disappeared into a world built for people who never have to explain themselves. He thought he was done with her. He thought time had closed the wound. But wounds don't close when the truth never does. And suddenly, everything he thought he buried was clawing its way back to the surface. He stood, pacing the room, replaying the call over and over. Mercer wasn't dramatic. He wasn't emotional. He wasn't the type to exaggerate. For him to reach out now meant one thing. Something was moving behind the scenes. Something coordinated. Something dangerous. Travis walked to the window, staring at the city lights below. Marina had reinvented herself with such precision that even he questioned whether he ever knew her at all. The speeches, the interviews, the glowing articles calling her a modern icon of motherhood. And yet, she wasn't supposed to be able to have children. Not after the surgery. Not after the night he drove her home from the hospital, and she refused to look at him the whole ride. He could still hear her voice from that night. Cold. Final. We never speak of this again. He didn't know it then, but that sentence wasn't a request. It was a warning, one he obeyed for 7 years. And now, the truth was forcing its way back. But here's where the story takes a turn. Not because of what Travis did next, but because of what happened before he had the chance to do anything at all. A knock at his door. 3 slow taps. Not urgent. Not impatient. Just deliberate. Travis's stomach tightened. It was nearly midnight. No one visits at midnight unless something is wrong. He approached the door slowly, staying silent. The knock came again. Same rhythm, same calm. Travis didn't speak. Who's there? Felt dangerous. Instead, he looked through the peephole. But no one was there. Just an empty hallway. Travis stepped back, pulse racing. The knock hadn't been imagined. He heard it. Twice. So where did the person go? He waited 1 minute, then 2, before slowly unlocking the door and opening it just enough to see the floor. That's when he noticed it. A single white envelope. No name. No return address. Just placed exactly where someone knew he would look. Travis stared at it without moving. He didn't reach for it. He didn't pick it up. Because part of him already knew what it was. The past wasn't knocking. It was delivering. He finally crouched, lifting the envelope carefully, as if expecting it to explode with the life he tried to outrun. Inside was one sheet of paper. No note. No explanation. Just a printed message in clean, spaced lettering. Do not speak to anyone. We'll be in touch. Travis's throat tightened, not because of the message, but because of the symbol at the bottom of the page, a crest. A crest belonging to the Kingsley family, Marina's new family, the most powerful family in the country. Travis dropped the envelope onto the table and stepped away, his mind racing through possibilities he didn't want to consider. Someone already knew about the phone call. Someone was watching. Someone wanted him silent. But the worst part wasn't the threat. It was the implication. If the Kingsleys were involved, then Marina hadn't just erased her past. She had helped scrubbing every trace of it clean. Travis sat down slowly, breath uneven. How long had they been monitoring him? How much did they already know? And if they were willing to warn him tonight, what would they do tomorrow? He stared at the envelope for what felt like hours, until one realization cut through the fear. Someone didn't want the truth to come out, which meant the truth still existed. Somewhere. Somehow. And if the Kingsleys were willing to intimidate him before he'd even spoken a word, then Marina's secret wasn't just personal. It was valuable, dangerous, protected. Travis leaned back, closing his eyes. He had spent 7 years trying to forget, but the past wasn't finished with him. And the next time someone came to his door, it wouldn't be to deliver a warning. It would be to collect one. Because if the Kingsleys were already moving, then Travis had a choice to make. And very little time to make it. Stay silent, or find the truth before the truth found him. But what Travis didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that the envelope wasn't the only message delivered that night. Someone else received one too. And when you find out who it was, everything you think you understand about this story will shift. Because silence wasn't the only thing being enforced. Someone, somewhere, was already preparing for the next move. And the person they targeted next had even more to lose than Travis ever did. Most people would assume that Travis receiving a midnight warning was the most unsettling part of that night, the moment everything shifted. But the truth is, the story didn't fracture when Travis answered the phone. It fractured somewhere else, miles away, in a house that didn't belong to him. Because while Travis was staring at a white envelope with shaking hands, someone else was staring at something far worse. And unlike Travis, she didn't have the luxury of being surprised. Her name was Evelyn Harrow, Marina's former best friend, her last remaining connection to the life she abandoned, and the woman who knew more about Marina's past than anyone still breathing. Evelyn was not a dramatic person, not reckless, not easily rattled. She was the kind of woman who paid her bills early, organized her closets by color, and treated secrets the way museums treat artifacts. Locked behind glass, untouched, dusted, but never disturbed. But even Evelyn had limits. And tonight, she reached them. It began quietly, the same way Travis's night had. Evelyn was sitting at her kitchen counter, sorting through paperwork that didn't matter, avoiding the one decision she'd been circling for months. She'd received an invitation earlier that day, engraved, heavy, dripping with wealth. An invitation to Marina's upcoming memoir launch. The irony wasn't lost on her. A memoir. A story. A truth. Evelyn knew the real truth, and Marina knew she knew it. Which meant the invitation wasn't a gesture. It was a warning. Show up. Be seen. Behave. But Evelyn wasn't planning to attend. She was planning to disappear. She had already booked the flight. Already packed the essentials. Already convinced herself that running wasn't cowardice. It was survival. Then came the sound. A soft mechanical click. Not from the door. Not from a window. From her security system. Armed. Disarmed. Rearmed. Evelyn froze, listening. It happened again. A delay. A hesitation. As if someone unfamiliar with the keypad needed 2 tries. Her chest tightened. She stood slowly, her pulse thudding like footsteps inside her body. Evelyn wasn't paranoid by nature. She was logical, reasonable, grounded. But there is a moment every person experiences at least once in their life when the air itself feels wrong. When silence becomes a presence instead of an absence. She reached for her phone, ready to call someone, anyone, but stopped. Because who would she call? Not Marina. Definitely not Marina. Evelyn backed away from the kitchen island, moving toward the hallway, every instinct telling her to stay calm, even though calm felt impossible. Her breathing was too loud. Her footsteps too soft. The house felt smaller than usual, as if the walls were shrinking around her. Then she saw it. A shadow. Not moving. just existing. At the bottom of the staircase, Evelyn's stomach dropped. She blinked, and the shadow was gone. Just like that. No sound. No movement. As if it had never been there at all. Evelyn swallowed hard, forcing herself not to panic. She moved toward the staircase slowly, step by step, until she reached the bottom. The air felt heavier here, like someone had exhaled moments earlier. That's when she noticed it. A small black box on the floor. Smooth. Perfectly square. Too deliberate to be an accident. Evelyn crouched carefully, staring at it without touching it. There was no logo. No tape. No sign of forced entry. Just an object that wasn't there an hour ago. She extended one hand and lifted the lid. Inside was a single item. Not a note. Not a threat. A photograph. Evelyn stared at it for 3 long, paralyzing seconds, because the image wasn't old. It was current, taken just hours earlier. A picture of Evelyn, standing at her own mailbox, looking down at her phone, unaware she was being watched. Her throat tightened. Her heart hammered. Then she noticed something else. On the back of the photograph, written in the smallest, cleanest handwriting she'd ever seen, were 3 words. Do not run. Evelyn stood up quickly, the room spinning for a moment before her balance returned. She pressed her hand against the counter, grounding herself, forcing her breathing to steady. Her first instinct was to call the police, but then reality crashed in. What would she report? A picture? A box? A feeling? Police don't respond to dread. She picked up the photograph again, studying every detail. The angle suggested the photographer was close, not across the street, not in a passing car, but near enough to hear her breathing if she spoke aloud. Someone had been sitting outside her home, watching, waiting, and they wanted her to know it. Evelyn sank into a chair, her hands shaking. The message wasn't the threat, it was the implication. Whoever delivered the box didn't need to break in, didn't need to confront her. They wanted her to understand something far more chilling. They were already inside her life. Evelyn closed her eyes, and memories rose like smoke. Memories she thought had settled years ago. The night Marina vanished from their shared apartment without explanation. The day Evelyn received a signed NDA from Marina's attorney without ever asking for one. The moment Evelyn realized Marina's reinvention wasn't ambition, it was escape. But escape from what? Or who? Evelyn opened her eyes. There was something she hadn't told anyone. Not Travis. Not even her therapist. Something she promised she would take to her grave. The night Marina showed up at her door 2 months after the surgery. Pale, shaking, terrified, demanding to sleep on her couch because someone made a mistake. Evelyn never pressed for details. She didn't want them. Some truths don't feel like truths. They feel like detonators. But now, the detonator wasn't waiting. It was ticking. Evelyn stood abruptly, driven by instinct rather than logic. She walked to her bedroom, opened her closet, reached behind a stack of folded blankets, and pulled out a small metal lockbox. Her emergency box. Not for money. Not for passports. For insurance. She placed it on the bed, unlocked it, and lifted the lid. Inside were 3 items. A letter written in Marina's handwriting. A flash drive. And a key. Evelyn stared at them, the same way someone stares at a memory they wish they could unsee. She never meant to keep them. She meant to destroy them. But she couldn't. Because even back then, before the wedding, before the wealth, before the photographs of Marina cradling children who may not have been hers, Evelyn knew Marina's past wasn't dead. It was buried. And buried things have a way of clawing upward. Evelyn picked up the letter first, unfolding it slowly. She had only read it once, years ago, and promised herself she never would again. But tonight, promises meant nothing. The handwriting was frantic, uneven, hardly recognizable. It read, "If anything happens to me, don't let them say it was my choice. You know the truth. You were there. Do not trust anyone who tells you otherwise." Evelyn stopped reading. Her hands trembled. She never understood the letter fully, not then and not now, but she understood the fear behind it. Marina wasn't running from a scandal. She was running from someone. But here's where the story deepens. The fear wasn't what terrified Evelyn. The timing did. Because the letter was dated the same day Marina announced her engagement to Nicholas Kingsley. The same day she transformed from Marina Hale into Marina Kingsley. The same day her past officially died. Evelyn placed the letter down and reached for the flash drive. It was unmarked. No label, no indication of what it contained. She considered plugging it into her laptop, but stopped. What if it was being monitored? What if opening it triggered something she couldn't undo? She set it aside and picked up the key. A small, brass, old-fashioned key, the kind that didn't belong to modern locks. She had never found what it opened. Marina refused to tell her. She only said one thing. If you ever need the truth, the key will find the lock. At the time, it sounded dramatic. Now it sounded like prophecy. Evelyn closed the lockbox, her mind spinning through possibilities she didn't want to consider. Someone knew she still had these items. Someone knew she hadn't destroyed them. Someone was watching to make sure she never used them. Her escape plan wasn't a plan anymore. It was a target. Evelyn sat back down on the bed, clutching the key tightly in her hand. She wasn't sure how long she sat there. Minutes, maybe hours, before reality settled into one cold, inescapable truth. Running was no longer an option. Someone didn't want her gone. They wanted her close. Close enough to monitor. Close enough to silence. Not with violence. Not with force. But with fear. Evelyn stood slowly, gripping the key like a lifeline. The photograph remained on the kitchen counter downstairs. The black box sat open like a warning she couldn't shut. The house that once felt safe now felt like a container. A glass one, transparent, and watched. Evelyn walked to the window and parted the curtain just an inch, just enough to see the street without being seen. A car was parked across the road. Lights off, engine silent. Not unusual, except for one detail. It wasn't there earlier. Evelyn's breath hitched. She stepped back from the window, heart pounding. The house felt colder now, as if the temperature itself shifted. She wasn't imagining the danger. She was living inside it. Her phone buzzed. A single text. Unknown number. For words. Do not open anything. Evelyn stared at the screen, confusion tightening like a knot. She hadn't opened anything, except the box. Except the photograph. Except the letter she wasn't supposed to keep. Do not open anything. Meaning what? Meaning next time, the warning wouldn't be a message. It would be a consequence. Evelyn sank into the nearest chair, her hands trembling. For the first time since Marina vanished, Evelyn understood that silence wasn't protection anymore. It was compliance. And compliance had an expiration date. Somewhere across the city, Travis sat with his own warning. Completely unaware that he wasn't the only one pulled back into Marina's past. 2 people had been alerted. 2 people had been marked. But only one of them knew why. And as the night closed in, Evelyn realized something even more terrifying. The messages weren't meant to stop her from speaking. They were meant to stop her from choosing who to speak to. Because someone else was coming. Someone who didn't knock. Someone who didn't leave envelopes. Someone who didn't warn. And when that person arrived, silence wouldn't be an option anymore. Which raises the question that will take us into Chapter 3. If Marina's past is finally waking up, who is trying so hard to keep it asleep? Most people like to believe that danger announces itself, that it arrives with footsteps, sirens, broken glass, or some kind of cinematic chaos. But the truth is far quieter. Real danger walks in without sound. It breathes the same air you do. It waits. And that's exactly how the next piece of this story entered the world. Not with violence, not with confrontation, but with a camera. 6 hours after Evelyn discovered the photograph in her home, long before the sun rose, someone else was already reviewing it. Not in fear, not in panic, in calculation. The photograph didn't end with Evelyn. It began with someone else, a man named Adrian Holt. And if Travis and Evelyn represented Marina's past, Adrian represented her present. He was not part of Marina's inner circle. He didn't attend family events. He wasn't photographed alongside royalty, wealth, or power. But he was connected to the Kingsleys in a way far more dangerous than influence. He was employed by them, not as a bodyguard, not as a driver, as something far more precise. Adrian Holt was an investigator, private, discreet, and unlicensed in every country where his work mattered. His job wasn't protection. His job was prevention. Prevention of what? Exposure. Adrian didn't collect information for curiosity. He collected it to bury it. That's why he had the photograph. That's why he received a digital copy before Evelyn ever picked it up from her floor. That's why he sat in his apartment at 4:16 a.m., staring at the image on his laptop in complete silence. Not analyzing the photo, analyzing the woman in it. Evelyn Harrow, age 37, former roommate of Marina Hale. Unmarried. No children. No arrests. No financial irregularities. No travel outside the country in the past 2 years. Clean. Too clean. Which meant one of two things. Either Evelyn had nothing to hide, or she was very good at hiding it. Adrian leaned back in his chair, the faint hum of the computer the only sound in the otherwise empty room. He wasn't emotional about these things. He didn't judge the people he tracked. He didn't care about motives. He cared about patterns. And tonight, something broke pattern. Because for 7 years, Evelyn Harrow lived like a ghost. No interviews, no public presence, no contact with Marina. Then suddenly, two things happened within 8 hours. Travis Ellington received a warning. Evelyn Harrow received a surveillance message. Someone was activating the pieces. But it wasn't Adrian. He wasn't the one who delivered the photograph. He wasn't the one who sent the text. He wasn't the one who left the box inside Evelyn's home. Which meant someone else was running a parallel operation. Someone inside the Kingsley network, or worse, above it. Adrian zoomed in on the image, examining Evelyn's posture, her expression, the angle of her phone. She wasn't distressed. She wasn't rushed. She didn't know she was being watched. That detail mattered. People behave differently when they feel hunted. But Evelyn wasn't acting hunted. She was acting unaware. Which meant the fear she felt now, the fear that kept her awake in the darkened house, was new. And new fear makes people unpredictable. Adrian closed the laptop and stood, stretching the stiffness from his shoulders. He walked to the window and stared out at the sleeping city. Lights flickered in tall buildings. A delivery truck passed slowly below. Nothing about the world reflected the tension he felt, and that's how he preferred it. If the world looked calm, people didn't ask questions. He checked the time again. 4:22 a.m. He wasn't due to report in until 9, but he had already made a decision. He grabbed his coat, slid the laptop into a messenger bag, and headed for the door. He didn't lock it. No one ever came to his apartment without purpose, and if they did, a lock wouldn't stop them. The hallway was quiet. He moved without sound, without hesitation, without urgency. Adrian never rushed. Rushing meant emotion. Emotion meant distraction. Distraction meant mistakes. And in Adrian Holt's world, mistakes had consequences. Not for him, for others. He exited the building, stepping into the cold air. The sky was still black, not yet hinting at morning. He walked to his car, a vehicle so unremarkable that most people wouldn't remember it even after staring directly at it. He sat, turned on the engine, and spoke one word into the hands-free console. Call. The system responded calmly. Whom do you want to call? He answered. Director Voss. There was a long pause before the call connected. When it did, no greeting followed. Just breathing. Controlled. Slow. Awake. Adrian didn't waste time. There's another party involved. Voss didn't react immediately. Not with surprise. Not with confusion. Just a measured silence followed by. Define involved. Someone accessed both subjects before I could. Voss exhaled quietly. Was the message delivered? To both. And the reaction? Predictable. Meaning what? Adrian stared straight ahead. Fear without action. Voss hummed thoughtfully. Then leave them. They are not the priority yet. Adrian didn't respond. He waited. Voss continued. The manuscript changes everything. Adrian's jaw tightened. The manuscript. Not the memoir. The version Marina was writing before the Kingsleys intervened. The version no one was supposed to know existed. The version that didn't match the public story. Adrian spoke carefully. Do we have confirmation it still exists? Voss answered. We have confirmation someone believes it does. Adrian's pulse didn't change, but his focus sharpened. Who? Voss paused. That is what you're going to find out. The line went dead. Adrian didn't react. He didn't sigh. He didn't curse. He simply shifted gears and pulled into the street, merging into the empty road with the quiet ease of someone who spent his life watching danger unfold without ever stepping directly into it. But tonight was different. Because tonight, for the first time in 7 years, the truth wasn't just waking up. It was moving. Miles away, as the city slowly shifted toward morning, Travis Ellington remained exactly where he had been for hours, still seated at his kitchen table, staring at the envelope like it might start breathing. He hadn't slept. He hadn't eaten. He hadn't moved beyond pacing and sitting. His mind replayed the phone call with Mercer like a broken loop. Marina's file is gone. Someone accessed it. A private copy still exists. Every time he reached the end of the loop, it only led to more questions. Why now? Why him? And why did the Kingsleys care enough to send a warning before he even spoke? Travis pressed his palms into his eyes, as if he could push the thoughts back into silence. But silence wasn't coming. Not anymore. His phone buzzed. He flinched. For a full 5 seconds, he stared at it without touching it, bracing himself for another message, another threat, another attempt to control him. But it wasn't a text. It was a call. From an unknown number. Again, Travis answered. He didn't speak. He waited. A woman's voice broke the silence. You were warned once. Don't make us warn you again. Travis swallowed. Who is this? The voice remained calm. Someone trying to keep you alive. Travis felt the air leave his lungs. Alive? Meaning what? He tried to steady his voice. I haven't done anything. Not yet. The call ended. No explanation. No instructions. No chance to respond. Just a message that didn't sound like intimidation anymore. It sounded like preparation. Travis stood abruptly, knocking over the chair behind him. His instinct screamed that staying in the apartment was dangerous, but leaving might be worse. He grabbed his keys, then hesitated. Where would he even go? Who could he trust? Certainly not Marina. Not the Kingsleys. Not the hospital. Not the police. Then one name surfaced. Uninvited, unwelcome, but unavoidable. Evelyn. The only person who lived through Marina's past. The only person who might know more than he did. The only person who could confirm whether he was losing his mind or finally seeing clearly. Travis grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. He didn't know that Evelyn hadn't slept either. He didn't know she was still sitting in her darkened living room, gripping a brass key with white knuckles. He didn't know someone was parked outside her house, watching her windows. He didn't know Adrian Holt was already on the road, heading somewhere neither of them expected. He only knew one thing. He wasn't going to survive this alone. But while Travis moved toward the only person who could help him, Evelyn Harrow was facing a far more dangerous decision. She wasn't thinking about Travis. She wasn't thinking about Marina. She wasn't even thinking about running anymore. She was thinking about the flash drive. The unmarked drive sitting on her nightstand like a heartbeat she could hear but not see. For 7 years, she refused to plug it in. Not because she wasn't curious, but because she was terrified of the answer. If the drive contained nothing, her fear would look irrational. But if it contained something, her fear would become real. Evelyn stared at it, her mind locked between two equally unbearable truths. Then she stood, slowly, deliberately. She walked to the nightstand and picked up the flash drive with trembling fingers. She wasn't ready to open it, but she was ready to stop pretending she didn't need to. She slipped it into her pocket, because the next move wasn't going to happen inside her house. It was going to happen somewhere else. Somewhere she hoped wasn't being watched. But as she reached for her coat, her phone buzzed again. Another text. Same unknown number. This time, just 2 words. Too late. Evelyn froze. Her breath caught. Her pulse stopped. Too late for what? Too late to run? Too late to hide? Too late to choose? But the real answer didn't arrive as a message. It arrived as a sound. A car door closing outside, followed by footsteps. Slow, deliberate, coming toward her front door. Evelyn backed away, heart slamming against her ribs. Someone was here, not watching from a distance, not sending warnings. Here, at her door. She didn't have time to think. She didn't have time to plan. She only had time to decide one thing, whether to open the door or wait for whoever was on the other side to open it first. And when you find out who was standing there, everything about this story will change. Because the person knocking wasn't there to threaten her. They were there to tell her the truth Marina spent 7 years trying to erase. There are moments in life when time doesn't slow down. It stops. It holds its breath right alongside you, waiting to see whether you will move or break. That's what happened to Evelyn. 1 second, she was alone in her silent hallway, gripping the brass key like a weapon that couldn't protect her. The next, she was frozen in place, staring at the front door as the footsteps on the other side came to a stop. No knock, no voice, just presence. A presence that made the air seem heavier, as if the house itself was bracing for what came next. Evelyn didn't call out. She didn't whisper, "Who's there?" She didn't move at all. Because the instinct to hide didn't come from fear, it came from certainty. Whoever stood outside her door didn't need permission to enter. They were waiting for her to break the silence first. The doorknob shifted. Not a full turn, just enough to test it. Locked. Evelyn inhaled slowly, forcing her body not to shake. Her mind raced through every possibility she wished she didn't have to consider. Was it the Kingsley security team? Someone sent by Marina? Someone sent to retrieve the flash drive? Someone who already knew Evelyn had it in her pocket? Her phone buzzed again. Another message. Same unknown number. 3 words this time. Do not open. Her pulse hammered. Whoever texted her had eyes on the house. But that wasn't the part that terrified her the most. It was the timing. They sent the message not when the car arrived, not when the footsteps started, but the exact second the doorknob moved, meaning they weren't watching from the street. They were watching from somewhere much closer. Evelyn took one step back, then another, her fingers tightening around the key until the metal dug into her palm. She stared at the door as if it might lift its own hand and gesture back. Then, a sound, not from the front door, from behind her, a soft, controlled voice. Evelyn, don't panic. She spun around, breath catching in her throat. A man stood in the doorway to her living room. Not a stranger, but not someone she ever expected to see again. Travis Ellington. For a moment, Evelyn couldn't speak. She couldn't even process the collision of shock, relief, and anger that crashed through her system all at once. Travis raised both hands, palms open, his voice low and steady. I didn't break in. Your back door wasn't locked. Evelyn felt dizzy. She had locked it. She was sure she had locked it. Her voice came out thin and uneven. What are you doing here? Travis stepped forward slowly, not invading her space, but not backing away either. We need to talk. Evelyn stared at him, every nerve in her body on edge. Talk. Now. At her house. While someone was outside. She shook her head. You shouldn't be here, Travis. You need to leave. He didn't move. If I leave, something worse will happen. Evelyn closed her eyes. Of course it would. Because nothing about this night was random. Not Travis. Not the messages. Not the photograph. Not the car outside. Nothing. Evelyn drew in a shaky breath. Did you get a warning too? Travis nodded. Two. The number made something inside her unravel. This wasn't surveillance anymore. It was strategy. Evelyn motioned toward the hallway. The front door. Someone's there. Travis didn't react with fear, only focus. Is it one person or more? I don't know. They didn't knock. Travis stepped closer, lowering his voice. Then they're not here to force anything. If they wanted in, they would have come in. Evelyn hated how much sense that made. She ran a trembling hand through her hair. Why are you here, Travis? He exhaled slowly. Because Dr. Mercer called me tonight. Evelyn went still. She didn't need more details. She didn't need the full sentence. The minute she heard the name, she understood. The past wasn't resurfacing. It was circling. Evelyn sank against the wall. What did he tell you? Travis hesitated. Not because he didn't know how to explain it, but because saying it aloud would make it real. He finally answered. Marina's file is gone. Evelyn closed her eyes, every muscle in her body tightening. Of course it was. Of course someone erased it. She whispered. It was only a matter of time. Travis looked at her sharply. You knew? Evelyn shook her head. No, but I suspected they would try. Travis stared at her. They? Evelyn didn't answer. Not because she was hiding something, but because she didn't know which they he meant. The Kingsleys? The hospital? Someone else entirely? Before she could speak, a shadow crossed the frosted window near the door. Someone was still outside, still waiting. Travis moved instinctively, positioning himself between Evelyn and the entrance. Stay behind me. Evelyn almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. Do you think that will help? No. Then why? Because it's something. Evelyn didn't respond. Her mind refused to stop spinning. If someone wanted to hurt them, they would have already done it. So this wasn't a threat. It was pressure, the kind that forces a choice. Evelyn swallowed. Travis. Why now? Why after 7 years? Travis looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time since he arrived, she saw fear in his eyes. Because Marina's writing a memoir. Evelyn felt the ground shift beneath her. The memoir, the invitation, the timing, the disappearance of the file. Everything aligned in one chilling line. Evelyn whispered, she's rewriting the past. Travis nodded. And we're in the way. Evelyn felt the truth settle into her chest like cold stone. Not just them. Not just the past. Something bigger. Something alive. Her breathing grew uneven. Travis stepped closer. Evelyn, what do you know? The question wasn't accusatory. It was desperate. Evelyn didn't answer right away. Not because she was unwilling, but because she didn't know where to start. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely audible. There's something I kept from her. Travis frowned. What? Evelyn walked to the bedroom, motioning for him to follow. She retrieved the lockbox and placed it on the bed. She opened it. The letter. The flash drive. The key. Travis stared at them, confusion tightening his expression. What is all this? Evelyn didn't look up. Proof. Travis's voice dropped. Proof of what? Evelyn finally met his eyes. That Marina didn't just leave her old life behind. She was pushed out of it. Travis didn't blink. By who? Evelyn swallowed. I don't know. But Marina did. Travis stared at the items again, his pulse accelerating. What's on the flash drive? Evelyn shook her head. I haven't opened it. Why not? Because I was afraid of what it would confirm. Travis exhaled sharply. And now? Evelyn held his gaze. Now I'm more afraid not to know. They both stood in silence. The kind that sits between two people when the truth becomes unavoidable. Then, the front door clicked. Not loudly, just enough to make both of them freeze. Travis moved first. He stepped into the hallway, shoulders squared, jaw clenched. Evelyn followed, every instinct telling her not to, but knowing she would anyway. The doorknob turned. Slowly, deliberately. Evelyn's breath stopped. The door opened. Just an inch. Then another. No force. No rush. A silhouette filled the gap. Tall. Still. Unarmed. Travis didn't move. Neither did Evelyn. The person stepped into the light. And everything inside Evelyn collapsed. Because the person standing in her doorway was not a stranger. Not an enforcer. Not someone sent by the Kingsleys. It was Dr. Rowan Mercer. The surgeon. The man who performed Marina's procedure. The man who called Travis. The man who wasn't supposed to be anywhere near them. Evelyn's voice cracked. What are you doing here? Mercer closed the door quietly behind him. His expression wasn't threatening. It was terrified. He looked at Travis first, then at Evelyn, then at the lockbox on the bed. He spoke in a whisper that sounded like someone who hadn't slept in years. They're not trying to silence you. Travis frowned. Then what are they trying to do? Mercer swallowed hard. They're trying to find her. Evelyn's heart stopped. Find who? Mercer's voice shook. Marina. She's missing. Evelyn felt the world tilt. That wasn't possible. Marina didn't go missing. Marina controlled everything. Travis stared at Mercer. Missing when? Mercer exhaled shakily. No one has seen her in 3 days. Not her staff. Not her husband. Not even the Kingsleys. Evelyn's legs nearly gave out. Travis stepped forward. Why come to us? Mercer's eyes darkened. Because both of you are being watched. Not to keep you quiet, but to see who Marina contacts, if she reaches you first. Travis felt his pulse spike. And if she does? Mercer didn't answer right away. Then he spoke the words that reset the entire story. If Marina is running, she's not running from the truth. She's running from the person who buried it with her. Evelyn stared at him, barely able to breathe. Mercer continued. And if we don't find her before they do, whatever she tried to protect dies with her. The house went silent. Not the kind of silence that follows shock. The kind that comes before the ground breaks. Because now, the question wasn't who was watching them. It wasn't who erased the file. It wasn't who sent the warnings. It wasn't even who helped Marina reinvent her life. It was something far more dangerous. If Marina didn't disappear willingly, who took her? And why now? There are disappearances that feel accidental. A missed call, a delayed response, a temporary misunderstanding that sorts itself out. And then there are disappearances that feel designed, planned, calculated, engineered so precisely that by the time anyone realizes something is wrong, the trail is already gone. Marina's disappearance belonged to the second category, except for one problem. According to Dr. Rowan Mercer, the disappearance didn't begin 3 days ago. It began 7 years ago. Travis stared at Mercer as if the man had spoken a different language. He couldn't process the words, not because he didn't understand them, but because they didn't fit into reality. Missing. Marina. The two concepts didn't belong together. Marina wasn't the type of person who vanished. Marina was the type who controlled every camera angle, every public moment, every manufactured perception. She didn't disappear. She curated. Travis finally forced the words out. How long have you known? Mercer rubbed a trembling hand across his face. Since yesterday morning. Evelyn's voice was barely audible. And you think she's in danger? Mercer didn't answer immediately. His silence was the answer. Travis took a step toward him. Who else knows? Mercer hesitated, not out of secrecy, but fear. Her husband, Nicholas Kingsley. The name alone brought a weight into the room. Not because of who he was, but because of what he represented. Power, money, influence, access to anything, except control over Marina. Travis felt his jaw tighten. So he reached out to you? Mercer shook his head. No, he can't. He signed the same confidentiality agreements I did. Evelyn's breath caught. Then how? Mercer cut her off. Someone from the Kingsley estate contacted the hospital. They asked if Marina had any scheduled medical appointments. When we checked the system, her record was already gone. Evelyn felt the room close in. They weren't just erasing her past. They were erasing her present. Travis tried to steady himself. Why come here? Why involve us? Mercer swallowed hard. Because whoever took her didn't erase everything. They missed something. Travis stared at him. What did they miss? Mercer's eyes shifted to the lockbox on the bed. Her handwriting. Evelyn froze. You mean the letter? Mercer nodded. Yes, that letter should not exist. And if it does, it means Marina didn't trust anyone around her, not even the people who helped her disappear the first time. Evelyn sank into a chair, her hand trembling around the brass key. The first time. The words echoed, sharp and chilling. Travis turned to Mercer. Explain that. Mercer hesitated, the kind of hesitation that only comes from someone crossing a line they never thought they'd cross. 7 years ago, the surgery wasn't the only thing Marina requested. Evelyn's heart stopped. What else? Mercer exhaled shakily. She asked for her records to be sealed. Travis frowned. That's normal for privacy. Mercer shook his head. No, she didn't want them sealed for medical reasons. She wanted them sealed so no one could confirm she was alive. Silence slammed into the room. Travis stared at him. Say that again. Mercer looked between them, his voice barely above a whisper. Marina wanted a record that could disappear if necessary. A life that could be erased with one administrative command. Evelyn's spine went cold. She was planning this even then. Mercer nodded slowly. Not the children. Not the marriage. Something else. Something that started before she ever became Marina Kingsley. Travis ran a hand through his hair, pacing the room. So she prepared for 2 lives. One public, one invisible. Mercer nodded. Exactly. Evelyn whispered. But why would she need that? Mercer hesitated. Because someone was looking for her. The sentence shifted the atmosphere instantly. Not metaphorically. Literally. The room felt colder, heavier, smaller. Travis stopped pacing. Who? Mercer shook his head. She never said. But the request was urgent. She paid in cash. She used a name that wasn't hers. Evelyn stared at him. What name? Mercer exhaled. Lydia Hale. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. Hale was Marina's maiden name. But Lydia wasn't her first name. It wasn't any name Evelyn recognized. Travis frowned. So what does that mean? Evelyn answered before Mercer could. It means she changed her identity before she ever married into the Kingsleys. Travis stared at her. Why would she do that? Evelyn didn't look away. Because Marina wasn't hiding from publicity. She was hiding from someone who knew who she used to be. Mercer nodded slowly. And now that she's missing, whoever was searching then may have found her now. Travis felt the air leave his lungs. So you think she ran? Mercer shook his head. No. This time, she didn't run. Someone got to her first. For several seconds, no one moved. The house was silent, but not the empty kind. The listening kind. Evelyn's voice finally broke through. What do they want from her? Mercer sat down, his shoulders collapsing under the weight of something he'd been hiding for years. Marina had a second procedure scheduled. Travis's heart stopped. What kind of procedure? Mercer didn't answer right away. He looked at Evelyn instead. The day she came to your apartment after the surgery, did she say anything? Evelyn's throat tightened. She said someone made a mistake. Mercer nodded slowly. She wasn't talking about the surgery. Travis felt his stomach twist. Then what was she talking about? Mercer took a breath. The kind people take when they finally run out of excuses. The file that disappeared wasn't the only one. Evelyn stared at him. There was another file? Mercer nodded. Yes. And that file didn't belong to Marina. Travis stepped back. Then who did it belong to? Mercer closed his eyes. Someone connected to Marina before she changed her name. Someone we never identified. Evelyn felt the room tilt. You're saying Marina wasn't the only person involved? Mercer nodded. There was a second patient. Same day. Same operating room. Same surgeon. Travis whispered. You. Mercer didn't deny it. Evelyn's voice shook. Why didn't you report it? Mercer looked at her, and for the first time, his fear was visible. Because the person who authorized the second procedure wasn't a doctor. Travis froze. Who was it? Mercer swallowed hard. A government official. Silence crashed through the room like a breaking wave. Not the Kingsleys. Not the hospital. Not a private request. Something bigger. Something with power beyond wealth. Evelyn's voice was barely a whisper. What kind of official? Mercer looked at her, and the answer was worse than a name. The kind that doesn't leave a paper trail. Travis felt chills spread across his skin. So the file wasn't erased to protect Marina. Mercer nodded. It was erased to protect the person she was connected to. Evelyn tried to process it. Then why erase the file now? Mercer's voice dropped. Because if Marina's memoir contains anything about her life before the Kingsleys, anything at all, it could expose someone who has spent years making sure their existence never shows up in any record. Travis stared at him. So she wasn't silenced. She was taken. Mercer didn't correct him. He didn't have to. The truth sat in the room like a shadow. Evelyn sank into a chair, her pulse racing. We need to open the flash drive. Travis turned to her sharply. Are you sure? Evelyn nodded. If Marina trusted me with it, she wanted someone to know. Mercer stepped forward. Wait. Evelyn looked at him. Why? Mercer's voice was thin with panic. The flash drive may not be safe to access directly. If someone knows it exists, they may have set up a trigger. Evelyn felt her stomach twist. A trigger? Travis frowned. Meaning what? Mercer ran a hand through his hair. Meaning opening it the wrong way could alert whoever is monitoring her digital footprint. Evelyn looked sick. So we can't access the only information Marina left? Mercer shook his head. Not here. Not through a normal device. Travis exhaled sharply. Then where? Mercer hesitated. And the hesitation was different this time. Not fear. Decision. There's someone who can help. Evelyn stared at him. Who? Mercer looked up. The only person Marina trusted after she left this life. Travis's heart slammed. She trusted someone? Mercer nodded. She didn't disappear alone. Evelyn's voice cracked. Where is this person? Mercer answered quietly. Far from here. And reaching them will put all of us at risk. Travis stepped closer. So what's the alternative? Mercer didn't blink. There isn't one. Evelyn closed her eyes. This was no longer about warnings, surveillance, or buried files. This was about survival. When she opened them again, her voice was steady. Tell us where to go. Mercer looked between them. Two people who never asked for this, now trapped in the center of it. Then he spoke the words that would push the story into terrain none of them were prepared for. We need to leave the city before sunrise. Travis felt adrenaline surge through his chest. Why before sunrise? Mercer met his eyes. Because once Marina's disappearance becomes public, we won't be the only ones looking for her. Evelyn gripped the brass key, her fear replaced by something sharper. Not panic. Purpose. She stood slowly. If we're leaving, we need to move now. Mercer nodded. Get only what you need. Travis started toward the door, then stopped. What about the car outside? Mercer's expression darkened. Ignore it. Travis frowned. Why? Mercer lowered his voice. Because the people watching us tonight are not the ones we need to fear. Evelyn felt a chill ripple through her. Then who should we fear? Mercer didn't hesitate. The ones who aren't watching yet. The room went still. Not with silence. With realization. They were no longer trying to uncover a truth. They were already inside it. And the truth wasn't waiting. It was coming. There are decisions that feel planned, researched, discussed, reasoned into existence. And then there are decisions that happen the way lightning happens, suddenly, silently, and without asking permission. Leaving the city before sunrise was the second kind. No one in the house felt ready. No one felt safe. But readiness wasn't the goal anymore. Movement was. Evelyn moved first. She crossed the room with a calmness that didn't match the panic pounding beneath her ribs. She didn't pack bags. She didn't gather clothing or valuables or even her phone charger. She grabbed 3 things. The brass key, the flash drive, The lockbox. Nothing else mattered. Travis stood near the doorway, watching her with attention sharp enough to cut air.